I did take a conscious decision of translating my literature into English so that it reaches a wider readership and audience. That's why I took up translation, though I also write on arts, on the arts and on civilizational issues. So, all that I write, but then I would like to be known as a translator, and I focus on classics, Odia classics. I have done a 16th century verse narrative, and then a 17th century fiction, and of course current classics from my literature. So now I'll be talking to you about this particular book which has come out in 2011. The book is titled The Golden Island, and in Odia, in fact it came out in Odia in 1994, and the book, the theme of the book is neocolonialism. And I'm sure, I'm not very sure, but I'm almost sure that this is the first book on the theme of neocolonialism in any Indian language literature, and I'll be happy to be corrected there. So now, you remember India's economy opened up in the 90s, early 90s with this Narasimha Rao government, and the book is also prophetic in that sense, because it can also pass off as a metaphor for the realities happening in countries, in these third world countries. The book tells us about the destiny of an imaginary third world country named the Golden Island after its economy opened up as a fallout of globalization. So now, shall I tell you about the plot briefly? So now this civil servant from India is deputed to the Golden Island as advisor to the Department of Rural Development of that particular country. So now he encounters all these absurdities of, because Suvarna Dipa or the Golden Island was a very peaceful country before that. They were just happy with their agriculture, fishing, all these activities. But then suddenly with this globalization, the country is dictated upon by forces from outside, like all these monetary agencies like the World Bank, IMF. So they switch over to daffodil plantation, things like that. They can't manage that, so they grow. They get into the land. Sorry, what is it called? Drug chain. So obviously they do that puppy and that opium thing, because daffodil plantation can't really sustain. They can't, manage the dynamics and the mechanics. So all that happens, and finally, obviously, and then it eventually gets into your cultural contingencies like religion, your way of living, everything. Finally the country gets decimated, and they have riots. Politics also, the politics again is remote control from outside. So all those absurdities. This man from India, he just wonders what is happening to this country. And the ending of the novel is a little ambivalent, in the sense he dies, maybe he dies, because he just falls victim to a riot and then he dies. But then he is asking himself, does this world have a map? And if at all it has a map, where do I stand? Perhaps he represents that thinking, that conscience of a happy man or of a free man. So that is that. It is from the perspective of his viewpoint, from the protagonist, who is called Abhishek. By the way, this book is by Hrishikesh Panda. He is now our best fiction writer. So I usually pick up classics, so that is why I have taken up this book. And particularly when this is the first Indian language novel on that particular theme, which is so relevant actually. And we can see, like countries like even Africa for that matter, whatever is happening out there, it's all there in the book. This has a subplot, not subplot, but parallel plot in the form of the personal life of the protagonist. He is also losing his marriage and his children because he's deputed to a different island, different country, and his wife, he can't get his wife along. His wife is also a civil servant in India. He can't get her over to the place because he can't approach the powers that be. So he's that uprighteous and that straight man. So on that also he loses his. He's losing out on his battles, as at his profession, also at his personal life. In fact, that plot also is quite touching. It's very, very human, and it adds to the readability of the novel. And there is a lot of first-hand descriptions of how a government works. For example, Government of India and the politics. There's a lot of that, very first-hand. Perhaps because the author was working with the Government of India those days, and like very first-hand informations which will be otherwise impossible for an author to get access to. So, like how elections are fought and how the corruption in elections, then riots, and the machinations of a riot. All that is there, and the absurdity of the political. They have a democracy, but it's all like like just on eyewash. So all those things are also there, very, very detailed, and it's so prophetic. The book, original book was written some 20 years back, but it's like it's like the events are just unfolding by the day, all over the world. Okay, Argentina, Brazil. You just look at their economy, the way it is just remote control from outside forces. You just, like your basic frame is not there. It's almost like shallowed, and like you are dancing to others' tunes. It really sounds hackneyed nowadays, but it is way back in 1994 maybe. It was a huge, thought. Obviously, I'm a little worried about these neo-colonial mindsets of countries because, see, we have just got independence for 60 years. 60 years, they have not been ruling us for the last 60 years. But practically they are ruling us, isn't it? Like this FDI, it got through. I had been in Thailand last May. I was there for a month teaching in those language centers, ESL centers. What really pained me there is like all their money, their hard earned money from fishing, money from tourism, it's all drained out. There are the shops called 7-Elevens, American stores, one-stop stores. And a small island had some 10 of them. Understand? So if you just plunder like this, it's really, I am saddened. I am saddened, definitely.